All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver. I almost forgot the name of my own show right there at the very top. I literally had to think for a second what the hell the show title even is anymore. But anyway, my name is Patrick Moran, and I thank you very much for listening, watching, however you consume Talking Buffalo. I appreciate you very much. Today's episode, as always, is sponsored by Sunny Reds, 1531 Abbott Road, Lackawanna, just minutes away from Highmark Stadium. Great food, great drinks, great vibes. If you have not been to Sunny Reds, make sure you do yourself a favor and go check them out. Especially if you like wings. I'm telling you right now, there's some of the best wings you're going to get anywhere in Western New York. All right, this is our Wednesday episode. As always, I'm joined by a good buddy from over at SB Nation, Matt Warren. Matt, dude, there's so much going on. I literally forgot what the name of the show was momentarily. It has been a whirlwind. Unfortunately, of course, most of that not for good reasons. The Bills lose this past weekend. Season over. How you doing, man?
I'm okay. What was it, Sunday night? Like I was working until like midnight or whatever after the game, writing stuff and editing stuff and doing all that. And then I just sat there for like an hour, just like scrolling through my phone on stuff that wasn't Bills related. I just needed to like turn it off. But then even when I went to sleep at 1:30 or whatever, it was a hard time. I just had a hard time sleeping. And it's the first time in a very long time that I've had a hard time sleeping because of a football game.
Yeah, it's I'll say this. I'm still, as you can tell, 2 days later, I'm still a little bit distraught. I'm not gonna lie. And I said this too. I'm jealous of people. Sometimes I'm like, I want to make sure I say this the right way. There's a lot of fans out there that are fans. They want the Bills to win. They cheer when they win. They're sad for a little bit when they lose. Give you a perfect example. My wife's family, I love them to pieces, and they have a big party every single Bills game, and they always alternate where they watch the game. But there's 15 to 25 of them that show up at somebody's house in the family every week to watch a game, and they care. They definitely care. I'm not saying they don't, because they do care. But during the game, there's conversations going on, talking about life and all this other shit. You could barely hear the TV. Much love to them. I can't do that though. Like, I got to hear everything. So I don't go to those anymore. But my point was this. That there's stuff going on in the background. The game's part of it. You know what I mean? And when the Bills lose, when they win, they're happy. When they lose, yeah, that sucks. Oh, so what are you doing later? You know what I mean? You get over it like in minutes. I've always been jealous of that. And with some teams, I've talked about this. There are some teams that I love as a fan, but I don't have that emotional attachment where it just really eats away at me. I used a couple of examples. I'm a big Notre Dame fan. They just played for the national championship a couple weeks ago. They lost. I was over that in 10 minutes. I'm a big Yankees fan. They get to the World Series this past year. They lose to the Dodgers. Man, I didn't even finish a beer and I was already over that. You know what I'm saying? The Sabres, there was once upon a time they were good. And I was a little more, distraught when they would lose in the playoffs during some of their runs, but I got over it real quick. For whatever reason with the Bills, it just eats away and it lingers at me, especially when the opportunity is there like it was this weekend. And again, I'm jealous of people who have the ability to say, oh, shucks, that sucks. I'm over it. It takes me more time than the average person to process that, if it makes sense to you, compared to other teams that I like.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And the other thing, like I was pretty much over it by the time I woke up Monday morning. But then like Monday night we had like all these different kids activities. And so you're running into people, you're running into, the guy that you always talk about the Bills with at hockey or, wherever. And so like you're rehashing the same like key points from the game like four times in four separate conversations. Like really it's going to be this whole week probably, because
Sure.
I know there were some people that weren't at hockey last night that I'm going to see like Wednesday or Friday when we have practice. And so at some point in time, I'll like continue to have that conversation about what happened in the game and how they, continue doing it. And of course, this too, like, just recording this podcast, I have purposely avoided all of the post game podcasts and stuff like that, just because I wasn't really in a good place for it on like Sunday night, Monday morning. But, like,
Yeah.
and I really don't I don't know. I like rehashing it and like talking about next steps and all that other stuff, but I also don't want to listen to like 10 different podcasts doing the same exact thing. So we're gonna do that, but we're gonna do it in a fun way. But I just I I also just didn't want to sit in it for whatever it is, like 8 hours listening to every single Buffalo media member say the same points over and over again about like Patrick Mahomes is the goat and has ice in his veins and all this other stuff. I just couldn't do that either.
I feel hypocritical. All right. This is a podcast. This is a 5 times
Yeah,
per week podcast. 100% feel critical because I actually agree with you in a way. And the last person who should be saying, I can't listen to a podcast after a tough loss should be somebody who has a podcast. I get,
after a tough loss.
but I also get what you're saying. I was kind of the same way. I'm not going to say which one. I listened to one Bills post game podcast. I normally, besides doing my own, I like to see what other people are talking about. I usually listen to 5 or 6 minimum. I mean, I'm a big podcast guy, obviously. I can only listen to one. It was all that I was able to
Mhm,
take.
mhm.
And yeah, like you said, you purposely avoided it. I didn't have a choice. So, 20 minutes after the game ends, I'm on with Joe from Queens. And honestly, that wasn't that bad because I was almost still shell shocked that, that
Yeah.
the Bills lost and how they lost and all that stuff. It was when I got up Monday morning and had to record like my biggest Bills takeaways. And I watched the game film. And by the way, I spent almost 5 hours watching the all 22 on Monday. There were some plays I probably watched 5, 6 times. That was depressing and sickening because God, we're going to talk about some of this. Some of the coaching and preparation, when you watch the film, how much it came to light. It literally, you hear the phrase all the time, checkers versus chess, and that can be corny. That was accurate when it comes to this game. I'm telling you, I promise
Oh
you,
yeah.
it was. And we'll talk about some of that. And we're also going to today, I haven't really talked about it much, but I think it's time to have a conversation about Brandon Beane. And we'll at least flirt with that conversation about Brandon Beane. I like him. He's done a lot of good things. This isn't necessarily like, the trial of Brandon Beane this episode, but there's some things that he's done, some moves he's made, important moves that just flat out did not work. And that's a big reason why the Bills are not playing in the Super Bowl, just straight up. So I kind of want to get to that. And then the last thing that I want to hit on you with before we get into like coaching and GM stuff. So we were talking about, just depression and losing the game and how you handle it and not being able to
Mhm.
sleep. You said that it's been a long time, this and that. The worst part of this loss for me wasn't me. And again, I'm telling you, 2 days later, it still lingers and bothers me, but that's not the worst part. I hit on this for a few minutes yesterday. My son, who is now 22 years old, okay? So he's played football since he was 5 years old. He played all the way through high school, got hurt. Otherwise, he would have played college ball. He knows football very, very well. A student of the game. He'll point out a lot of shit during the game that even I'm like, well, I didn't realize that. But anyway, he's been a fan. But he's been that kind of fan that I was talking about a few minutes ago. If they lose, he don't give a shit. He's on his Xbox in 5 minutes. And I'm talking about a couple playoff runs over the last few years. 5 minutes later, he's on his Xbox or whatever he's doing, and he don't give a shit. This year was different. He was all in, invested, watching all the games, happy, mad, whatever the emotion that the Bills brought out from you, that's what he felt. And in this game, I'm a pacer. I can't sit still in a tight game. I go for a walk from behind the couch in the dining room. I'm pacing back and forth. I'm living and dying with every play. He was standing up, and I never seen him that tense over a game. He was legitimately upset. He went to bed upset on Sunday night for the first time ever over a Bills loss. And I thought to myself, I'm like, well, there's the newest member, the initiation into the tortured Buffalo Bills fan society. You know what I mean? There's your
Mhm.
newest member, my son, Shane. Um, it sucks because, and I'm sure you know some people too who really wanted this badly, and you feel for them. It's not even just about you, it's about the people that you know that are such Bills fans. And we know a lot of them. We got a lot of common friends on Twitter and stuff like that too
Mhm.
that are heartbroken over this. You feel for them a lot, don't you?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I feel for, me, I feel for you. I feel for
Mhm.
like, all of us collectively. The Bills media members, like, a guy like, I don't know, Joe Viscelli, Jay Skursky, the guys that were grinding during the drought, like getting a chance to go cover a freaking Super Bowl for a week, like that would have
Sure.
been awesome. Like,
Mm,
I feel for all of these people, not just, the diehard fans that can't sleep that night. It really does permeate like my wife's group chat with her, college friends. It's like, it's everywhere.
sure. And look, whether you're Joe Biscaglia and you're just objective and unbiased and you really don't care if the Bills win or not, you're covering the team, or guys like Perino, Alex Brasky, Sal Capaccio, these guys really don't even try to hide the the fact that they're fans of the team too, which is fine. I'd be the same way. That's not me criticizing them. I think it's okay in 2024, 2025. As long as you could cover a team objectively, you could be a fan of it. But anyway, yeah, thinking about it in your mind, one win and you're going to New Orleans and you're going to go cover a Super Bowl. A lot of these guys have never covered a Super Bowl because they do local stuff, not national. So sure,
Mhm.
I feel for them as well. I feel for everybody right now. None so more, like I said, than Bills Mafia. So that's our emotions. In terms of the game itself, we're into what, day 2 now. So we're recording this late Tuesday morning. Obviously, the game was played Sunday night. As of right now, like what lingers in your mind most about the game? Like what one or two things maybe specifically still bother you more than anything else right now?
Um, I I was a huge defender of Josh Allen, really all season, really throughout his entire career since he got here. The slow start that the Bills offense and defense both
Yeah.
had, Allen looked rattled out there, and I think that was the thing that kind of hit me the hardest coming out of the game is that like it really did take them, I guess, till the second quarter, maybe even the third quarter, to really settle in and feel like they were playing a football game and not the biggest game of their lives, And so obviously that's going to come back to coaching. And, we talk about how Josh Allen has like, that nervous energy inside of him and all that stuff. But I think that was the one thing that stood out to me during the game. And then after the game, I've been saying it all over Twitter and Blue Sky, you need to step up and make a play for your guy. And the Bills don't have the dudes to do that. They don't have guys that are stepping up and making plays. Like when Mac Hollins caught that touchdown pass, that was a dude making a play. And
Mhm.
when Dalton Kincaid didn't make that catch, like that's a guy letting down his team. And I'm not going to focus too much on Dalton Kincaid's, drop or anything like that, because there's a lot of other plays that were like that, but they just needed a half a yard better of a block from one of the offensive linemen, or one different decision from Josh Allen or Joe Brady, or they just needed to find something, that next gear, and the Chiefs had the guys that were creating plays, and the Bills just didn't in this game. And so that's kind of the thing that's kind of stuck in my craw, and I know we're going to get to more of that coming up.
Um, I couldn't agree with you more. It's all season long, it has felt like sooner or later, the Bills just donating a touchdown to the opposing offense on the first drive of every game. It's like sooner or later, it's going to catch up to you. It happened against Denver. Ultimately, it didn't matter. In fact, that game was a blowout. It happened against Baltimore. The Bills were able to score right back and kind of wrestle control the game. And they went into the locker room up 21-10 against Baltimore. This time, the Bills fell down 21-10 at Arrowhead. And even though they were winning 10-7, it never felt like the Bills were up early in this game. But
Mhm.
yeah, the defense, they don't come ready to play. The offense was clearly rattled. I mean, that first possession that Josh Allen had was that was the worst, maybe the worst possession or the sequence of plays I think maybe they've had all year. It was
Uh-huh.
incredible that he didn't have an interception. It was almost like he was begging to throw one to start the game. But yes, slow starts were huge. And what also lingers to me, and I'm just, dude, I'm not that guy. I'm not going to argue about the Josh Allen spot. It was a terrible call. I mean, it was just a terrible spot, period. But the play before that, the officials, when you watch it on the all 22, and I saw a breakdown, Dalton Kincaid on that 3rd and 3, I swear to you, had the first down. His knee did not go down. The ball
Right.
is on the 40. The
Yep.
fact that number one, it should have been ruled a first down. And number two, the fact that they didn't even measure that. The spot was terrible. and it should have been measured. Because if that ball gets measured during that time, Sean McDermott's got the opportunity upstairs. They're telling him, you got to challenge that, because that's a challenge he would have won. Challenging the fourth down, that was a desperation challenge. All those, all the massive bodies and the ball, which was really hard to see. It was going to be really hard to overturn that, even though you could see that it should have been. But Arrowhead, they're not overturning that. But that Kincaid spot was so egregious, and the ball, you could see the whole thing. There's no bodies blocking any camera view. 100% was the first out. I thought that was critical, man. It was such a big part of the game. It should have came down to the fourth down tush push.
Right. And it was the fact that it was so obvious because they started that series of downs on the 50. They just had to get to the 40-yard line to get the first down. Yeah. And so it was just the white line clear across the whole field. It didn't have to like guess if it was like, the 42.5-yard line. No, it was the 40-yard line. You have to get to the white stripe to get the first down. And so that's why it's been so clear on, your Twitter or Blue Sky, like armchair breakdowns, because like you see the ball landing on the 40-yard line. You see him picking up the first down. I'm talking about Kincaid.
And the tush push too. That, I mean, it was just incredible how unsuccessful it was. I mean, you go that 2-point play, which again, during that game, I was actually mad. I wanted the Bills to just keep the point. And I swear I said that before the play, before the tush push. I swear to you, I said it before the play. But anyway, you get that. I'm telling you, it matters. It mattered. Obviously, at the end of the game, the tush push mattered too. And kind of leads to coaching, though. So you go to that 4th and 1, Matt, at the end, the last series where they don't get, or I'm in the second last series, my bad. And Dalton Kincaid is on the edge. And if he gets any kind of block, any kind of push on that defensive end, Josh Allen's getting that. And also you had Ty Johnson behind. I don't understand. I remember earlier they would have Matt Collins behind Josh Allen. He wasn't out there, or at least not in that spot. And how do you not have Quinton Morris, or even better, Alec Anderson on the edge? You're not fooling nobody. They know it's coming. How do you not have a bigger, stronger blocker than Dalton Kincaid on the left, which is the side that you are going to every single time? There were so many situations in this game where you look at personnel and the way things were used. It's just, it's infuriating. But how shocked are you that Kansas City stopped that 3 out of 5 times? And one of the times Josh got it, by the way, he fumbled and got lucky because the ball kind of bounced right back to him as he was going over the top onto the ground. He had to reach over. It was incredible to me that these guys just couldn't convert that successfully. And that ended up being a big part of the game, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Nance and Romo did a great job of breaking it down. Like, the Bills are going to go left. And so they're just stacking them up right there. I'm like, everybody, the entire season knew the Bills were going to go left, and they still converted it at 90-something%. So right. I don't think that the Chiefs had some insane information that the Bills were going to go left. Everyone knew it was going to go left. They just outperformed the Bills' offensive line, which does not happen very often. And the Chiefs' defense deserves a ton of credit. Coach Spags deserves just heaping amounts of credit. And even Chris Jones after the game said, as long as no team hires Spags as a head coach, we're just going to keep winning Super Bowls. And I'm like, you're not wrong here. I don't think so. Their defense is a very underrated part, especially this year, of their success over the years.
Look, as much as it pains me to do, I gotta give flowers to Kansas City. It's just they're a machine. They are a well-oiled machine. Their coaching is awesome. Guys step up, to your point. You make a play for your quarterback. The Chiefs do. The Bills just often enough do not.
Correct.
Yeah, and a lot of things, like you said, Kincaid, he's got to make that catch. You got to make the catch, man. Guys got to step up when the opportunity is there. Kaiir Elam came into the game. That was one of the more unmitigated disasters I think I've ever seen, ever, from a corner. I mean, there's some tape out there now that's floating around social media. And again, watching the film, it was bizarre how bad he was out there. From what I heard Joe Buscaglia talking about this, that he was so bad out there that the Bills had to play man because he was not capable of playing zone in their base defense. And they had to get away from that because that's how bad Kaiir Elam was. So players, yes. But what I want to transition to, like I said, watching the film,
sure,
The coaching. It was
Yeah.
an issue. It was night and day advantage, Kansas City. And that's probably what I've like progressively gotten the most angry over these past 48 hours is just seeing the difference in preparation and coaching. And do you think now in hindsight, and it's easy to have hindsight, that, Spagnuolo, Andy Reid, these coordinators on the Kansas City side, and then you got Joe Brady, who this is his first full year as a Bills offensive coordinator, and Bobby Babbage's first year ever anywhere as a defensive coordinator. That experience got them exposed a little bit. Do you think so? Because it certainly looked like it. It looked like it on film.
Yeah, I don't know how much I buy into that specific theory. Especially with Babbage. Like, I mean, McDermott's been there. I mean, he took a team to the Super
Sure.
Bowl. Like, not that the Panthers were some, like, defensive juggernaut. The entire time McDermott was down there, and in that Super Bowl year, it was obviously on the arms and leg of Cam Newton. But they have experience, and Brady's coached in big games before. He understands that kind of stuff. Um, I know that there are a lot of people that are questioning why the Bills just kept going back to the tush push when it didn't work, or at least like putting a wrinkle off of it. Like, is there a tush push pass or a tush push lateral or something like that that the Bills haven't shown that they could have done there? Think back to the 4th-and-2 play that Josh Allen scored the game clinching touchdown in the regular season matchup. Like, that wasn't a tush push play. It was 4th-and-2, so they knew they had to spread it out and give Josh more options. I would have loved to have seen that on that final 4th down play instead of the tush push, even though it was only a foot and they only needed a foot. I would have liked to have seen something like that where they have multiple options available to them. You get the run pass with Josh. Maybe it's a read option handoff two in there, so there's like triple option in there. I would have loved to have seen some of that, but I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily because he was an inexperienced coach, or just like Josh told him he was going to get it and he didn't. Like,
Look, it was a Bobby Babbage, not a great day. Joe McDermott has his hand in that cookie jar too. I don't care what anybody says on the defensive side of the ball too. And sometimes it's just the players got to make the plays too. You're talking about a guy, you got to make a play for Josh.
Yeah.
Well, defensive ends guy, you're coaching the NFL well enough to know to stay home. Don't lose containment. And the Bills just kept doing it time and time and time and time again defensively. So it's kind of the same principle. When it comes to Joe Brady, though, I agree with almost everything you said. I don't have a problem with the tush push, though, because it's not like he caught anyone by surprise all year. Fucking block better. Excuse the language, everybody, but make a block. Like I said, make a block and have better personnel out there. Again, the game, in a way, is not necessarily on the line at that time because it was the beginning of the fourth quarter. But you got the wrong guy back. That wasn't a tush push. Here's what I'm getting at. Those weren't tush pushes. Those were Josh Allen quarterback sneaks. Earlier in the season, those were tush pushes. Like, you look at the Eagles, how they do it, and they got two guys right around Hurts, and they just come and they blast him. The Bills,
and one of them is Saquon Barkley, who's also like a stud running back.
Absolutely. Like, why is Mac Hollins or Keon Coleman or something like that not behind him? Or again, Alec Anderson, somebody like that. You got Dalton Kincaid, by far their weakest skill position blocker among the tight ends for sure. He's out there on the left edge, and you can watch. If you watch that replay, he gets blown up. He gets stood up. He's got no leverage. If you get a little bit of leverage, I'm telling you, Josh Allen gets that first down because he blocks that guy down. There's just a lot of things about Joe Brady that were terrible in this game. None so more to me, and I want to get your take on this. James Cook, 16 touches. How does that happen? You're not getting blown out. This guy was consistently the best player on the field. Josh did some incredible Josh things like he always does, but consistently, James Cook was the weapon that Kansas City really didn't have an answer for. Not just in the rushing game. He had 13 carries for 85 yards, something like that. But he also had 3 catches for 49 yards. He was making shit happen in the passing game as well. And over the last, he doesn't touch the ball in the final series. He only had 2 touches on the last 2 series. Or he only had 2 touches, I'm sorry, on the first 2 drives of the football game. That's what I meant to say. He doesn't touch the ball in the last series. This guy's your best player. It reminded me straight up of Super Bowl 25. Like, why is Thurman Thomas not having the football in his hands a lot more? You put too much on Jim Kelly, and you kind of paid the price for it. And I feel that same way about this football game. Joe Brady's got to, don't get cute. James Cook's your guy, and they got away from him way too often. You saw what he did when he got the ball in that third quarter. He just was eating them alive. And find a way to get him, whether it's running the ball, passing game, whatever it is. That pitch play to Ty Johnson was not going to work against the Chiefs. And I got one other coaching bitch that I'm going to get at with you in a minute. But what do you think about that? James Cook, why is he only getting 16 touches? He needed to have 8 to 10 more.
Yeah, he just wasn't on the field as much as as we wanted him to be on the field. He was only on the field. He wasn't even on the field for half the snaps. It was only 45% of the snaps, and Ty Johnson was on the field for 3 snaps fewer. So it's like I understand that like they have that specific role carved out for Ty Johnson, but at some point, yeah, James Cook should be on the field more than 50% of the snaps. Like just especially when he's averaging however many yards per touch he averaged. He was at like 6 or 8, right? Wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he was unstoppable. Even if he's not getting the ball, his presence, play action handoff to him, they're going to focus and account for him and pay a hell of a lot of attention to James Cook when he's on the football field. You get him out in the flats, that might open up something in the middle. There's just so many ways to use him, even if he's not touching the ball, Matt. And
Yeah.
I think that's like the biggest key of the game to me. My single biggest takeaway, my single biggest key is the Bills danced with what brought them this entire football game. Like their snap percentages were pretty much the same. Cooper, Cook, Johnson, Davis, like all that, everything was the same that you saw the week before that, and the week before that, and the week before that. The Chiefs had wrinkles, new plays. Bills players admitted, which I'm going to get to here in a few minutes. 2 Bills players during locker cleanout day admitted something that the Chiefs did that they had not seen before on film. And I thought that was very telling. Typically, to me, a locker room cleanout day is a fucking snooze fest. It's how I love my teammates. I love my blah, 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 blah. I thought there were a couple of things that were actually revealing that I want to get to. But generally speaking, the Chiefs had new wrinkles. They showed the Bills some new things. And the Bills, like I said, they just danced with what brought them. What did they do on offense that you hadn't seen before this season? What? Literally nothing. Nothing. Zero. Am I wrong?
I don't think so. I haven't watched the all-22 like you have, but no, I just went back and looked at James Cook's like game logs for the entire season, and heading into what was it, week 10, he was at like 55%, 56% of the snaps, and then after that, the only game that he eclipsed 50% of the snaps was against the Ravens, and he was really damn effective in that game. So like, why? I just don't understand why they didn't use him more in that Kansas City game. He was 6.5 yards per rush, 8 yards per touch, if you include his great contribution in the passing game. So,
do you remember
they just needed to get him more.
A couple of talking head analysts that I typically cannot stand? I hate them. They're awful. But I'll tell you, in hindsight, I think it might have been Keyshawn Johnson maybe a couple of weeks ago said the Bills are an easy team to prepare for. I think there might be some validity to that. The difference is Josh Allen could just do things that no matter how prepared you are, Josh Allen will just do something that's unworldly anyway. Or James Cook will break a tackle and bounce one outside no matter how well prepared you are. They just got great players. But you look at this game, and I don't look at an offense that was very hard to prepare for. They did the same 4 or 5 things that they've been doing pretty much the entire season. I was waiting for whether it was a trick play, some new formation, some wrinkle with this team with Joe Brady. And at the end of the day, you just never saw it. Here's what I'm doing. We'll take a quick break. I'm going to come back. I told you about 2 players that talked about something specific that they hadn't seen before. I want to get to that with you. And then I want to turn our attention to what today's show primarily was supposed to be about anyway, and that's Brandon Beane. And I think he deserves at least a little bit of heat along with a lot of these players and coaches as well today. He deserves to be mentioned if you're being critical of the Bills season ending short of the Super Bowl. So take a real quick break, come back, and we'll hit on all that. All right, I'm back here with Matt Warren, SB Nation. I gotta be careful because this could easily become a 2.5 hour episode if I really got to every single thing that I want to talk to you about. All right, so before the break, I was talking to you about locker room cleanout day. Tyler Dunn was talking with Osiris Torrance, and This really kind of blew me away. So this is the offensive side of the ball. Spagnuolo showed this particular pressure and backed off, Tyler wrote. And it's typically would send heat where the Chiefs weren't showing it in pre-snap. Okay, now this is all about that 4th and 5 play, where the Bills, where Kincaid doesn't make the play. All right. That's why the Bills slid their protection left. All right, so the Bills slid their protection left, and if you watch it on the film, you'll see it. They slid their protection left because all game long the Chiefs were faking like they were going to blitz from that left side, and then they would back off and they would come from the middle or the other side. Osiris Torrance said straight up to Tyler Dunn, they set it up. It was like they were waiting to get in that situation all game to bring out that one pressure. That's what I'm talking about with coaching. They did something they hadn't done the whole game. They set it up. And look, Josh Allen still did something that 99.5% of quarterbacks ain't ever going to do. Should have been a sack, but he made a play and it should have worked out in the Bills' favor. We all know that. But the point was the Bills had no idea that was coming. They did not expect it. They slid the protection the wrong way because of that. And maybe that's on Josh a little bit too as well. Mm-hmm. But the fact, does that strike you, the fact that the Chiefs dialed up something? This is what I'm talking about with the coaching, checkers versus chess. They waited all game. They set something up, and they hit you with it when you didn't expect it. Clearly, the Bills didn't expect it because they were not prepared for that. Are you surprised a little bit to hear that from a player? I was. Maybe you're not.
No, I frankly wasn't. Spags is just so freaking good at what he does that, like, it didn't surprise me at all to hear that he had, another wrinkle left at the bottom of his bag, or another lever to pull, at that one precise moment in time. And yet David Edwards is blocking nobody. He's chasing the defensive tackle eventually, that got in. Torrance got whooped on that play too. Like, I mean, that he had no clue. They were in a blender. They had no freaking clue what was going on at the snap. And like that, there were people actually questioning if Connor McGovern snapped it early because that's how bad the Bills' offensive line was. So on that one play, so I give major props to Spags for that.
Sure, me too.
That's and again, that's why I think he's probably the best defensive coordinator in the league. And I really wish somebody would hire him as a head coach somewhere so that I didn't have to deal with him anymore.
Yeah, look, on that play too, you watch the film, David Edwards, because they slid a little bit to the left, David Edwards had nobody to block at left guard. He blocked air. And by the time he realized that and tried to get back and help, it was too late. And there's a lot of people saying, Josh should have dumped the ball to Shakir, would have been a first down. First of all, A, you don't know that. B, there's two guys in his face. There's two guys in his face within a second and a half, so he doesn't have time to react to that. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And lastly, look, the ball hit Dalton Kincaid in his arms. I mean, what more can a human being do than get that ball up there? And there was a blown coverage on that, too. By the way, if they pick up, everyone's going, well, Shakir, if you had time, could have dumped off Shakir, would have got a first down. How about this? If they would have picked up that scheme correctly and blocked it, Dalton Kincaid scoring a touchdown because they blew that coverage. And if Josh hits them in stride, worst case, they're inside the red zone. And that's the absolute worst case. Get a little bit worrisome, though, because then the Chiefs will get the ball at the end of the football game. So I don't know if I would have liked that. Just catch the ball at the goddamn 40. But anyway, my whole point was that was Spagnuolo just doing something that the Bills didn't see coming. That's what coaching is at the right time. I want to flip to the other side of the ball because Greg Rousseau, who I thought was absolutely, positively awful in this football game, worst game by far he's played this season. And I said yesterday, I'll stand by it. As far as I can remember, that might have been the worst game of his career as a Buffalo Bill. Certainly the last couple of years, he sucked. All right, he was terrible. He was getting sucked in time and time again.
Yes.
Zero impact, but this isn't about Greg Rousseau. I'm making it about him. This is about what he said to ESPN's Elena Getzenberg. There he said there were plays that the Chiefs ran that they hadn't seen in preparation or film at all. And he was asked specifically about a diamond look with tight ends on the sides of Mahomes and Kareem Hunt in the backfield. And this is what Greg said to Elena. He says, they pulled a tackle on one of them, and then they ran the QB keep. I didn't see that in my breakdowns that I watched. So these guys, again, were watching film, getting prepared all week, and the Chiefs did something that they were not prepared for, that they hadn't seen. This is what I'm talking about with coaching. They did things specifically for this game that the Bills we're not prepared for, whether it was the blitz, whether it was on the other side of the ball, just the quarterback sneak, pitching the tight ends in, things like that. Coaching, bro. It's coaching, Matt. It's coaching. You're hearing this from the players, too.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that the Mahomes touchdown out of that diamond look was the exact same one that Lamar Jackson scored on in the first game way back in September.
Yes, it was.
And
yep.
So I found this stat very fascinating. Patrick Mahomes had 2 designed rushes the entire season coming into the AFC Championship game, and then he had 2 designed runs in the AFC Championship game. So I can sympathize with what Groot's saying. Like, yeah, we haven't seen Patrick Mahomes running the ball a lot this year, and he's right. Like, there are only 2 designed runs all season. Like, you could watch every single Chiefs offensive snap, and like from the totality of those thousands of snaps, like you're like, oh, he rushed 2 times. Like, so are you going to really prepare for that? But that's exactly what the Chiefs pulled out at the moment that they needed it the most. And they converted on the 4th down where he had the option to pass it or the option to run it, and he chose to run it. And then they converted it for that touchdown that we saw that Groot was talking about.
Yeah, and it's just, again, with the Bills, it's like, where is and the Kansas City Chiefs did that. Did a little bit of trickery. It's not a trick play, but it was trickery to the Bills because they weren't prepared, and it worked. Whereas with the Bills offense, you just seen the same things that you've been seeing literally all season. What have we been saying for how many weeks now? Well, I think that maybe they're waiting to unleash Amari Cooper in the playoffs. He's going to, I'm like, all right, playoff time. He's going to be out there 70, 80% of the snaps. He's going to make a lot of plays, which, by the way, he was fine. It just didn't get a lot of opportunity. I got no issue with Amari Cooper, so I don't want to make it sound like it's his fault. Dalton Kincaid, he's going to get unleashed. They've been holding him back for the playoffs. Blah, blah, blah. We've been saying this. Trick plays. They're just running a basic, like, they're not going to show anything against the Jets. They're not going to show anything against the Patriots. They're keeping that in their wheelhouse for the playoffs. Well, this was the playoffs. This was the AFC Championship game against an elite defense, at least a very good defense, and you didn't see any of it. Like, where's the fake, put someone in motion? Where's a jet sweep to Curtis Samuel? I haven't seen that pretty much all season. Where's a fake to Cook and, maybe you fake the bubble screen to the right and then you try to go over the top or something to the left or skinny post, something like that. There was just no imagination, no creativity whatsoever with the Bills' offense. It just felt to me like this is what got us here, and we're not going to stray from that, win or lose. We're no nonsense. We're going to do what we do. These are our set of plays, and maybe they're coming, but we're going to execute them anyway. And I really feel like they paid for that, which is weird because the Bills did score 29 points. It's not like the offense sucked. That was
going to be my next point. Like, I think, unfortunately, this also might reinforce that thought of just keep doing what we're doing and we'll be in a position to win the game. To Sean McDermott and the rest of the Bills coaching staff. Like, we were like this one play away, this one execution piece away. Our thought process was sound. So it actually might reinforce the fact that they don't have to add those wrinkles, even though you can clearly see on the other side of the ball that the Chiefs had designated wrinkles specifically for this game.
Does it? This conversation, kind of a rhetorical question here. It feels like the defense is a lot more to blame for this loss at this point than the offense. Even though the offense was frustrated and had some moments, and the defense did a couple of good things in the second half, but this game's a lot more on the defense than the offense in hindsight, isn't it?
Well, yeah, Patrick Mahomes had the best game of his career according to a lot of advanced metrics. The Chiefs offense had the best game of their season by a lot of regular metrics and advanced metrics. So you can't look at this game and say that, Sean McDermott and Bobby Babich developed a successful defensive plan. With that being said, over the last, 2 years or so, I've really come around to, I really don't give a crap what the defense does. I just want to score every freaking time I have the ball if I'm the Bills offense. And I'm just going to outscore them. Like, get one bounce that you need on defense, like Patrick Mahomes somehow dropping a freaking fumble into your lap. Like, get one of those stops and then just score every freaking time you have the ball, and just layer on points until the other team turns one dimensional. And that's kind of like, we're going to talk about like free agency and all that other stuff. I'm much more interested in adding like offensive weapons to this team that can make a play for Josh Allen when they need to in clutch situations than I am talking about, a a disruptive cornerback or defensive tackle. However, I think the Bills are going to be the exact opposite of that, and they're going to
Yeah.
agree with you, and they're going to start working on the defense.
Well, it was last point about the game itself here, and then we need to move on. I will talk a
Sure.
little bit about Beam before we leave for today. But the
Yeah.
last two conversions of the game. All right, so the Bills, Kincaid doesn't make the play, and that sucks, obviously. But the Bills have an opportunity. They still got like a buck 35 or something like that, and all their timeouts. And so it's 2nd and 9, and you watch when you could see it on the film too. Another thing the Chiefs offense did, and I don't think maybe it was something the Bills hadn't seen before, but the Bills were just stubbornly stuck and they would not get out of a man defense in this football game for whatever reason. It's 2nd and 9. You need to stop. They stayed in man, and they did this on 2nd and 9 and then also 3rd and 9. They ran kind of, I won't call them a pick play, but it was legal because there's no contact.
Yeah.
There was running interference. And on 2nd down, they did play action and they slid Pacheco out to the flat. And you could see it on film. That was DeMar Hamlin's guy. They faked a handoff, I should say, on 2nd and 9. And the left edge, which I believe off the top of my head was Smoot. He bit on it, but also DeMar Hamlin did briefly for a minute because DeMar Hamlin's guy was Pacheco, and DeMar
Right.
Hamlin couldn't navigate through, the legal pick that's
Uh-huh.
set up for him, and Pacheco gets out there and it's an easy catch. Which, by the way, is an aside. DeMar Hamlin has done some things well for this team. Fundamentally sound dude, pretty good tackler. He's had some good moments with this team, but his limited athletic ability was exposed so utterly badly in this football game. Anyway, he's not even close. He doesn't get out there and they convert. Even then, they still got a 3rd and 9, 3rd and 9 from the 35. And if you could force, if you could either stuff a run at the line, force an incomplete pass, something, Mahomes got to throw the ball away because you get some pressure and the guy's covered. You have an opportunity to make them think they're going to either try a 53-yard field goal or they're going to punt. And Josh Allen's got plenty of time if they punt
Mhm.
to go down and get a field goal, and if they for a field goal to tie, or if the Chiefs kick a field goal, he's got an opportunity to get a touchdown and win the game. Anyway, it's 3rd and 9. The Chiefs got 3 receivers on the left side, and they all run towards the middle, and they slipped out Perini. And Terrell Bernard, again, clear man for man. There was not a zone here on 3rd and 9. They played man. They were just stubborn as a mule with that. And Bernard, who also had a very quiet, non-impactful game, couldn't get through. He couldn't navigate it. Again, Perini catches the ball. Bernard's not even close to him. Bam, first down. That's a wrap. Just more coaching. Coaching. That's going to be my takeaway, Matt, today, tomorrow, 6 months from now. The Bills, it was a masterclass in coaching between Buffalo and Kansas City, and I'm going to live and die on the hill that's the difference in this football game.
And we haven't even brought up the 2-point conversion calls, which I thought were the right move at both times that they made it. Just for the record, I agreed with Sean McDermott on those. But the challenge on that Xavier Worthy interception turned reception was absolutely dreadful. The most that the Bills were going to gain on that challenge was 20 yards, where the Chiefs were already in field goal range. I thought it was a stupid decision to waste the timeout
Mhm.
and waste the challenge. It didn't end up costing them anything, but it was the wrong decision for, I don't know, 5 or 6 different reasons. And so I was pissed about that when that happened. But I do think the 2-point calls were right, and I know you disagree with me.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
No, not the second one. I certainly think you go for it. Look, I can understand. Put it this way: I wanted the point on the board because it was just so early, and it did end up kind of mattering. But for the
It did.
record, it
Yeah.
did matter. It did matter. I don't want to go through 5 minutes of an explanation of why it did, but trust me, it did end up mattering in terms of the score and what
Oh,
the
yeah.
Bills needed. It could have worked out that the Bills already were tied after Jordan Phillips got that sack on that drive and they kicked the field goal. The Bills were down, what was it, 3? If they play it right, because the Chiefs went for 2 and got it, which they wouldn't have, it could have been a tied game when the Bills had the ball and Kincaid doesn't make that play. But anyway, no, look, the tush push was unstoppable. So if you're at the 1 yard line or closer, I'm like, do it. It's a free
Yeah.
play because you can't stop it. That was my mindset. Unfortunately, the Chiefs, they did stop it. All right. I want to spend the rest of today, the last handful of minutes here, kind of talk about
Sure.
Brandon Beane a little bit because, and this isn't going to be a whole, what has Brandon Beane done good for the team? What has he done bad? This is not a whole, indictment, a trial of Brandon Beane. But You look at this football game and you look at some of the reasons why I still think coaching is the biggest reason, but you said it early in the show. Players got to make the plays, man. And you look at some of Brandon Beane's big moves, high draft picks, a big monster free agent signing. Some of these miscues by Brandon Beane really came into light in this football game, and I think he deserves some heat for it. So I kind of want to talk about a couple of these players. We'll go. I guess we could go one by one. Let's start with Dalton Kincaid, okay? Because he doesn't make the play, obviously. Dawson Knox in the locker room on Monday clean-out day said he was playing with an injured PCL and another fluid in his knee. It was a miracle that he was even playing. I'm like, well, why was he not on the injury report for all these other weeks? Also,
Yep.
if he's that limited athletically, then maybe he's a detriment on the field and he shouldn't be on the field. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Here's the bottom line. Dalton Kincaid in the AFC title game, you move up, you go get this guy in the first round. He's not a tight end, he's a weapon. You remember hearing that, Matt? He's a weapon. He's not a tight end, he's a weapon. All right? Well, your weapon had 2 catches for 13 yards in this football game. He went an entire season where he did not have more than 53 yards receiving in a game all season. He has that crucial drop. The first down where I argued that he did get it and it should have been a first down, and it was. You know, at the same token as well, I don't even say break a tackle, drag a tackle, or drag a DB for an extra yard or 2. You're a goddamn tight end, weapon, whatever you want to call it. He should have gotten that first down easily. He went down almost on contact. He barely extended. He should have had that first down by 2 or 3 yards. So you got to make that play happen. I talked about how he got crushed on that tush push. I don't even know. I didn't put that on him. He shouldn't have even been in that position. There's just so many other things. Which, by the way, one other coaching bitch here on the side. I just thought of this. That 3rd and 3 where he gets stopped right short. Khalil Shakir is the lead blocker. What are we doing here? Why is Khalil Shakir the guy? Why is it not Matt Collins or Keon Coleman? It's the little things. If there was one of those guys blocking a DB, that DB got off Khalil Shakir, hit Kincaid, and brought him down within 3 yards. That can't happen. That can't happen. Anyway, back to Dalton Kincaid. You get my point. Very disappointing, ineffective year. And if you get the Dalton Kincaid that the Bills thought they were drafting last year, you're going to the Super Bowl today. We're talking about a Bills Super Bowl right now. Straight up, we are. Dalton Kincaid, not good this year. I'm not going to call him a bust. Not good this year, though. That hurts. That's on Beane some.
Oh, yeah. And people have been questioning Brandon Beane's, I'll say, first 2 rounds of drafts, like the first and second round of draft picks since last offseason. And it's hard to argue against those criticisms. Like, they found great players in the 3rd round and beyond, sure. Obviously, Josh was the most important, of all of, the picks that they had. He's worked out. He was a first round pick. But I think it's fair to criticize some of that top end talent. Like, finding, good players is one thing, but finding elite players, like the guys that have the dog in them, or like the guys that are going to go out and make a play, to our first point that we made in the entire podcast today. Like, I don't know if they're doing a great job with that. And of course, we can definitely question the defensive line stuff, but I know we're going to get there. So the Kincaid stuff, yeah, I know that teams were keying on him early in the season, but they certainly weren't keying on him by the end of the season. So where's the disconnect between his talent level, or his perceived talent level, and his production? I don't get it.
It's he was just another guy. Just another guy that season. That's what he was. So is Keon Coleman. There's another one. This was technically a 2nd round pick, but your 1st round pick. You traded down from your 1st round pick to go get him. Again, AFC Championship, Dalton Kincaid, 2 catches for 13 yards. Keon Coleman had 1 catch this game. I think it was for like, I don't know, 10 yards, 12 yards, something like that. He had 1 catch, 3 catches in the playoffs, the entire playoffs. He had 1 catch each game. So these are supposed to be your 2 best weapons. You let Gabe Davis go somewhere else. Great move. You trade Stephon Diggs. That's fine. It's a good move. It felt like it for most of the season. I'll say that. And, you're like, all right, well, we got Kincaid, we got Coleman, 2 high picks. The last 2 years, our first pick each year. These guys are going to help usher in this new era of Bills offense. Where is it? Where is it? And I know it's too early to have, a take on a trade because this is going to be a long career here, okay? But it's early, but it's ugly. Not taking Xavier Worthy looks like a mistake, or even more so, if you want to trade down because you really wanted that third round pick you didn't have. And what you see what Lam McConkey did this year with the Chargers, the Bills'
He's
biggest
good.
problem with receivers this year, I don't want to get off, off the path there, is separation. Keon Coleman does a lot of things well. Separating ain't one of them. These guys just don't get open enough. And Lam McConkey is literally a separator. But anyway, it's ugly. Keon Coleman was just another guy for a lot of this year. Dwayne Carter, the third round pick that you really coveted in a trade down with the Chiefs, literally didn't even dress in the playoffs. If you ain't better at this point of your season, even as a rookie, than say Austin Johnson or Quentin Jefferson, that means I got some concerns about you going forward as well. So,
Yeah, I think that's valid, but I don't necessarily think that Worthy's total 2024 season was better than Coleman's. I think Coleman had a higher yards per game average, but he missed 3 games, so his yardage total and touchdown total were worse than Worthy. But I think on the whole, they're about even as far as like their impact during the season. But then you saw during the game that Xavier Worthy was capable of stepping up in a big moment where Coleman, well, didn't. I mean, I don't know if he's capable or not, but he didn't.
no, the Chiefs probably don't win that football game if it's not for Xavier Worthy.
Right?
A big role in that game. I think what 5 for 65 and a touchdown. He was a big part of that. Plus, you got to respect his speed and other things about his game that I don't know. Look, I'm not anti Keon Coleman. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't love the pick last April, and I don't love the pick right now, especially seeing what a guy like Lam McConkey does. It got away from what the Bills have been so good at through these years, and that's having these quick guys who can separate real quickly. And other than Khalil Shakir, they don't got anything even remotely resembling that anymore. So I just feel like Keon Coleman wasn't the right fit. So at this point, and look, Keon Coleman is a big play guy. Ship breaks down. He'll make a big play. He'll go get those jump balls. A lot of these, good blocker. I'm not saying he's a garbage player. I want to be clear about that. But right now, what they needed, just it doesn't look like a great move. And then you go to, and I know I'm getting nitpicky here, but I can't help it. Greg Rousseau was so good this year. And God, another first round pick, but I'm telling you, he face planted in this game. I can't express to you, they would have been better with Casey Toohill in this football game, this specific game, than what they got from Greg Rousseau. Just awful. And I just ran off. This is another first round pick of Brandon Beane. Do I even need to get into Kaiir Elam? Do we even need to discuss Kaiir Elam? Another first round pick. That might be the worst pick of the Brandon Beane era. The whole regime, the whole shebang. These are first round picks, Matt. You can't, you're either missing or just another guy. And going back to Groot, I now have reservations about this guy getting what he's going to get. He's young. He's only going to be 26 when he's a free agent. He's going to get a lot of money. I don't know if I want it to be Buffalo anymore. And I didn't feel that way a couple of weeks ago, but I'm starting to now.
Yeah, he's going to sign a contract that's like somewhere between 22 and 25 million dollars per season. I don't count Groot as a miss in the same way that I count like Elam, obviously, or even like Kincaid right now. Like Kincaid's like you keep saying, just a guy. Elam's been terrible. Groot has been above average. I like what I've seen from Greg Rousseau. Maybe he was doing what the coaches told him to do in the AFC Championship game. Obviously, they weren't prepared for the Patrick Mahomes, rollouts, which doesn't make any sense to me because that's what that guy does. Like we've been saying it literally every single time we play a mobile quarterback is that the Bills like to keep everybody in the pocket so they can't roll out and create. And the Bills just didn't do that in the AFC Championship game. You have to wonder why. And is that because Groot sucked or is it because they didn't prepare for that for some reason? I don't know.
Well, I think they should have been prepared for him to have more than 2 tackles, no sacks, no quarterback hits, no impactful plays. AJ Epinesa, really don't have him included in this, but he was a first pick of the Bills, a second round pick. But again, another guy. So I just ran off a bunch of first or second round picks that really let this team down. And you got to say to yourself, you lose by a field goal. If Kincaid makes that catch, if Keon Coleman makes a couple plays, if Kaiir Elam is in an unmitigated disaster that they got to get away from their base defense because he's in the football game. You want to go back to more coaching? Why were they so stubborn to not even give Ingram some run? I don't understand that whatsoever. There had to come a point where Kaiir Elam should not have even been on the field, which, by the way, if the Chiefs did one thing wrong that surprised me a little bit, they kind of got away from picking on him in the second half. Not coincidentally, they ended up punting twice and settling for a field goal. I don't know how you don't. Yeah, he should have had 18 targets in 3 quarters or whatever the hell amount of football he played. And then the last guy. So you take a big swing and look, this is unfair to Brandon Beane to some extent. You go and you give Von Miller a lot of money, and then he gets hurt. It's unfair. You can't foresee him tearing his ACL. You can't foresee that. Although he did it before.
But we talked about this with Jordan Poyer. We talked about it with Micah Hyde. Like, as you get older, you are more susceptible to injuries. And so whether it's a torn ACL, which obviously is like different, or, a ruptured Achilles or whatever it happens to be, or it's, whatever injury, you're more susceptible to injuries as you age, as all of us old people know. So like, you had to know that he was going to miss a few games because of his age. You didn't know he was going to miss like a season and a half because of his injury, but you had to know there was going to be some higher level of injury risk.
I think to some extent, and the stats don't tell the whole story, because he actually had some good pass rush win rate, and he also was better than you would expect for him to be against the run this year. But he started out on fire with the sacks in his first couple games, and then he flamed out, and he barely even played. I think he played 16 snaps in this football game. This is the guy that you gave an incredible amount of money to be the Pat Mahomes stopper, to be the closer, to be the guy who's going to make the big play in the fourth quarter of a AFC championship game to get to the Super Bowl. And he was a non-factor in this game. And not only was he a non-factor, he barely even played. Was that wrong?
Right? Smoot played more. No, you're not. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, Miller played 16 snaps. Dwayne Smoot played 20. Like, how is that a thing?
That's what I'm talking about here.
You're saving him for the playoffs in the regular season so that he can be your closer, and then he pitches like one pitch in his. Sorry, I was trying to extend the metaphor way too far. It didn't land. But he's only played 16 snaps in the AFC Championship game. What the hell is he here for?
Exactly, and that's my point. And look, maybe if you're playing Derrick Henry and he's not going to be stout against the run, and you want Smoot to set the edge better, maybe on some levels I would be able to understand that. But the Chiefs were never going to beat you by running the ball 25, 30 times with their running backs. Wasn't going to happen. He only played 16 snaps. That's coaching. That's on him a little bit. And that's also, again, they took a swing on this guy named Look, he played 36 games with the Bills, 14 sacks, 41 tackles, and he earned over $47 million. The Bills had paid him $47 million for 14 sacks over the course of 36 games. Just imagine what you could have done with that money if you would have, allocated it elsewhere. He's got like a $24 million cap hit next year. And it's not as easy to just say, get rid of him. Like, you're going to eat a lot of dead cap to get rid of him to save a little bit. Could happen. I expect it to happen.
No, they're definitely not going to keep him. His cash position next year, they're going to have to pay him $17.5 million for next season. They're not going to do that. So it's only, I don't know, what is it, like 15 million in dead cap? Like, they're definitely getting rid of him. It's not going to be too hard to cut him.
And look, it's basically the stay out point here. Brandon Beane, it didn't work. Okay, you took the biggest swing you've ever in your entire Bills career as GM. This was far and away the biggest swing you took, and it didn't work. So again, Sean McDermott, Brady, Babbage, Josh a little bit, Groot, all these guys, you can't criticize them and absolve Brandon Beane from any criticism, because these are high profile, highly touted draft capital picks and a big free agent signing that he whiffed on. And then the last one, and it felt right. Again, it's easy to be a hypocrite at the time. Or I should say, I'm being hypocritical now if I criticize it, because at the time I loved it. But you give up a third round pick and you go get Amari Cooper. And it felt at the time like, this is a no-brainer. You got a 1, you got 2 2s. We'll give up a 3. We're going to go get an accomplished multi-time 1,000-yard receiver, one of the better receivers in the game, and he's going to elevate the Bills' offense. That never happened. That's not Brandon Beane's fault. That's more coaching, player, and maybe it is the player. Maybe Amari just wasn't a good fit for the team. I don't know, whatever it is, but you lost a third-round pick for next year for a guy who just really didn't end up having impact. We just talked about Kincaid, and Coleman, saving them for this type of game. Amari Cooper saving them for this type of game. He had 3 catches this game.
Von Miller saving him for this type of game.
Exactly. And these are guys that Brandon Beane, again, high draft picks, big money, or you traded a day 2 pick for a guy who, I mean, look, he was not much better of a factor to this team than MVS was, to be completely honest with you. And they're like, well, you got to count for him on the field. Dude, he didn't even play 50% of the snaps. I don't think he played 50% of the snaps in any of the last 7 or 8 times that these games that he played. So account for what? Account for him being on the sidelines? And I like Amari, man. I don't even blame him. It's just, it didn't work out, man. And again, your GM's got to answer for shit when it don't work out. So
yeah, that's right. And like you said, we kept thinking that they were going to use that added wrinkle, and they just that wrinkle never came. I'm looking at Amari Cooper's snap counts right now, and he was only over 50% once in the last 2 months of the season, and that was against the Rams when they were passing on every goddamn play. So he was only over 50% twice with the Bills the entire season, or 3 times. Excuse me, 3 times. So not great.
No, and again, I respect a guy who will take swings. Like I respect Beane for taking that swing. I respect him for going out and signing Von Miller. But at the end of the day, when something doesn't work out, it falls in your lap. If you work at a company and you're the manager of a department and you got these ideas and you implement these policies and they don't work, it falls on your lap. And to some extent, at least, he's part of what deserves a little bit of heat or criticism, whatever term you want to use, on why we're having this type of conversation today instead of spending a lot of time in the last 20 minutes talking about the Eagles. I feel like we should be talking about the Philadelphia Eagles right now, and we're not. This is part of the reason.
I also don't want to confuse anybody out there. I still think Brandon Beane's a really good general manager.
Me too.
I still want him as the Bills general manager. I've never wanted him gone in the ways that I've wanted Sean McDermott gone in the past. But he does deserve that criticism, to your point.
100%. I'm not looking to get rid of him. I think they would be stupid to get rid of him. He's a good general manager. He's done a lot of good things, really good things. And we can talk about, the Teron Johnsons and the James Cook picks, all those types. He's done a lot of good things. A lot of these low-key free agent signings. Look, Ty Johnson, Matt Collins, 2 low-key free agent signings. They were big-time contributors to this team and great character guys that you want in the locker room. I'm not saying he's done a shitty job, but what I am saying is when you lose to a team by 3 points on the road in an AFC title game, and you got high draft picks like Kincaid and Coleman who do nothing, and Cooper who you give up a third for, and they do nothing. See, the dog agrees too. These high-profile guys, they do nothing. You have to be accountable for that. That's all I'm saying. Last thing, then we're going to get out of here. Not going to deep dive into this today, and we will over the next, handful of weeks or whatever. But what are a couple things that you're expecting to see this offseason? Like with the Bills, do you expect an aggressive offseason? Do you expect them to just mostly try to keep some of their own and, kind of get a couple mid-level guys? You expect them to maybe try to take a swing for a Myles Garrett, move up in the draft, things like that. What are you expecting with the Bills right now, generally speaking? And we'll get into it more in future weeks.
Sure. I don't think you make the Stephon Diggs trade last year without at least starting to spend that cap space in your mind for the 2025 offseason. And so I do think they're going to be a little bit more aggressive in free agency than maybe they have been over the last couple of years, because they're going to cut Von Miller and get that cap space back. They're going to need a cornerback. I know at least Joe Buscaglia and a few other of the beat reporters were thinking that they may run Kaiir Elam out there as the starter next year. I don't think that that's an option anymore.
No.
So they're either going to need to replace Russell Douglas. They probably need another safety at this point in time. Obviously, DeMar Hamlin's a free agent, but I'm fine with him being my third safety. But I don't know if Taylor Rapp is going to be my starting safety. There's a few different spots. Obviously, they have to replace Von Miller. if they cut him, and so they'll have to be aggressive, like on that defensive line. So there are some free agent options at some of these positions of need that I would love to see them go after, and I think are reasonable and would be good fits. So I do think that they're going to be a little bit aggressive in free agency, and we always know he's looking to trade up in the NFL draft, but he doesn't have his third round pick this year, so we'll see if he's trading up in the second round, or I doubt he'll end up trading up in that first round.
Real quick here. There's no chance. Kaiir Elam's Buffalo Bills career is finished. Sean McDermott doesn't want to have to go to him anyway. I feel highly confident they will practically give him away. They'll do a seventh for a 6-round swap type deal, get him a fresh change of scenery, maybe another team he could jumpstart his career. I got nothing against the guy at a personal level. I'd love to see him go to another team and do some good things. It ain't going to be a Buffalo. The Bills are either going to go get a new CB2 or they'll re-sign Rasul Douglas. Put it this way, they will re-sign Rasul Douglas before they decide to give that job to Kaiir Elam. I can guarantee you that. The other thing I'll say in response to what you were talking about, I think DeMar Hamlin's going to be somewhere else next year as well. In fact, I'm reasonably confident about that as well. I'm going to give you a Cliff Notes version, and it'll kind of lead into a little bit of a cliffhanger that we'll dive into a little bit more maybe next week. I don't care about, look, I just talked about Kincaid and Coleman. I don't even want Brandon Beane to make the first round pick this year. I don't want the Bills to have a first round pick. I am willing to trade that and more to go get Myles Garrett. They need that guy. That's the guy they need. They need a guy like him or a guy like him. And I know it's like that sets off the Matt alarm with salary and other.
Well, it's not even the salary. Like, I just don't even know what it would cost to pry the best defensive player in the NFL away from the Browns. Like,
go get him.
I just can't even imagine what that would cost.
Max Crosby, a guy like that, whatever it takes, they need that. They need their Chris Jones. If you want to beat the Chiefs, it was supposed to be Von Miller. It wasn't. They got to go get a guy who could dominate a game, who can get 1 or 2 stops by himself. And a guy like Garrett or Crosby, 100% is that guy. And that might make them not give Groot long-term money too, which again, I'm good with that. So we'll talk about that more next week. We'll we'll even go through some of those guys. I just talked about, I think they need a solid CB2, whether it's Douglas. Well, I do think we'll be gone. They got to get somebody. It ain't going to be Kaiir Elam, though. I think they need a big man's man to kind of replace Daquan Jones. Maybe that comes via the draft. Although, and we'll talk about this next week, looking at Daquan Jones's contract, feels more likely that if he doesn't retire, that he would actually be back in Buffalo. We'll talk about that next week. I think any day now you might see the special teams coordinator Smiley get fired. That's got to happen. Gave up another long return in this game. How much of it is his fault or how much of it is the players not executing, whatever, we could debate that another time, but somebody's got to take a little bit of a sword for the special team shortcomings this year. And I think it's going to be the coordinator. I think they need to go get a wide receiver, especially if they're not going to be bringing back Amari Cooper, which I don't think they should, because he certainly don't seem like a fit in a Joe Brady offense. Somebody, like I said, who's better at separation, which I think is a low-key issue with the Bills. Resign Matt Collins. You got to get him back here. Good asset to this team. I feel the same way about Ty Johnson as well. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. Like I said, kind of lay the seeds. Go ahead.
You didn't mention Tyler Bass, I noticed.
He's earned his keep. He's earned his keep.
Good. With Matthew Smiley, if you're getting rid of the special teams coordinator, you're also getting rid of the guy that helped turn Tyler Bass back around during the season. So I'm just throwing that out there as like one potential thing to think about with Matthew Smiley.
No, I'm not going to think about that. I think Smiley's gone, but Tyler Bass did turn his season around. Look, he made every kick in the playoffs. He made 2 field goals of over 50 yards too. I would have
the longest field goal in Arrowhead history.
When we had this conversation saying Thanksgiving time, I would have been like, yep, they're going to move on. They got to get through this year with Tyler Bass, and then you move on. Tyler Bass ain't going nowhere. He's earned that. But anyway, next week we'll start to get into more specific stuff. We'll spend time. There's not going to be a game to talk about next week. So we will start to talk about the Bills off season and how we think it'll shape up. But we'll be able to do that a little bit more in detail. Make sure you follow Matt on Twitter and Blue Sky at Matt Rich Warren. Check out SB Nation, your one-stop shop for all NFL stuff. Appreciate you as always, buddy.